Hi, welcome to Horticulture and Homes, and thanks for joining me. Today I am pickling okra, and I have just about everything ready to go. And the recipe I'm using is from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. If you can at all, you should have this book. I mean, it's almost like your right hand. So since this is a copyrighted recipe, I will tell you that there is water, distilled vinegar, canning salt. I'm going to add my canning salt, and I'm making a recipe and a half. And it's okay to double your recipes and things like that when you're making a pickling liquid. Some dill seed. This is dry dill. I like this recipe quite a bit, so I don't change it up too much. I've tried numerous recipes. And this is something that my daughter likes a lot, and this is the recipe she likes the best, so that's the one I stick with. So I'm going to use cloves of garlic, and that's going to go down in each jar. Some of these cloves were very, very large, so I split them in half. And the other thing, the recipe calls for fresh hot peppers, and my hot peppers are not that hot this year because of all the rain that we've had. So I'm going to substitute some dried red pepper. I've done that many times before, and it's okay to you know, change up your spices, your dry spices and things like that. You can't go messing around with your pickling liquid as far as your ratios of vinegar. And then with the okra, this is about the amount of okra we get every day or two at the farm. And you want your okra to be shorter than your pint canning jar. And you're going to take this little stem off. And the trick is, when you make your cut, to you actually cut the top off, but not cut it so deep that you cut into the okra and cut a hole into it, and it starts to ooze and that sort of thing. So there's a little line here between the cap and the top of the okra, and I like to cut it right there at that point. You can see there's no hole or anything, but still nice and solid. And you can tell when you cut into your okra, your top, if it's a tough piece of okra, you can tell that when you're running your knife through there, and you don't want those tough pieces. You can discard those. So I have my okra. Now, one of the tricks that they don't tell you that I learned from a canning competition is to go ahead and take your knife and pierce some holes into your okra. And you have airspace inside that okra pod, and what happens when you can, because you're doing a cold pack with your okra, so what happens is you have that airspace, and instead of the liquid getting into that airspace, when you actually cook and can the okra, the moisture is taken up and slowly makes its way into that okra pod, and then your fluid amount in your jar is on the low side. So if you go ahead and pierce your okra, then you can squish that air out of the okra pods when you're stuffing your jar, because you're going to stuff that jar pretty full, and expel most of that air and take care of some of that problem with your moisture amount as far as the amount that's in your jar when you're done at the end of canning. So now all I have to do, I have all my okra prepped and ready to go, and I'm going to take my liquid, and I need to heat that to a simmer because I want that dill to start working in that liquid. And then my hot pepper and my garlic, I add that to the jar at the time when I go to process that. Now I have my jars on. I don't recommend putting your jars in the oven. You can use your dishwasher or submerge them in hot water in your canner and sterilize your jars that way. So I'm in the process of doing that, and once I get this heated and I'm ready to go, I'll be right back. Okay, I have my hot sterilized jar, and my okra is still raw. I haven't done anything with it yet. And I'm going to place my okra in the jar. I go along the edge of the jar. I put one upside down, I put one right side up, put one upside down, that one's kind of long, one right side up, and that's around the edge. And then in the center of the jar, I put a bunch of pods down so they take up the space in the jar. And then I'll put a bunch of pods in right side up. I really put them in tight. Oh, forgot to put in my garlic, so let's get that in the bottom of the jar. And my piece of hot pepper, that goes in. And the idea is to pack the pods of okra in here fairly tight. That'll help keep them from floating. Try and work quick. You don't want your jar to cool off a great deal, if you can help it. Okay. I don't really see any open spaces in the bottom of that jar, so now I'm going to put a bunch of these in right side up. I'm going to tuck them in here fairly tight. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to fill my jar with my pickling liquid. I like to stir that up so I get plenty of the dill seed in there. Okay, I'm going to fill that up most of the way. Let me take my chopstick and I put the fat side down because I want to kind of squish that okra around and push some of that air. Let's see if I can do this where you can see it. As I push on this, you can see the air bubbles as they get rid of that air, and then those will fill up with the pickling liquid. A couple of them have popped up. I'm going to push those back down. Oops. Didn't mean to push quite that hard. Okay. We want to leave about a ½ an inch of headspace. That one's a little bit full, so let me pour just a little bit off. I'm going to wipe my rim, make sure that's nice and clean. And I come over and get my lid and ring that's been getting hot. Place that on. And then I'm going to pop this into my canner. And I'll keep doing this until I fill up all my jars. Okay, so here we are the next day. My pickles have cooled, and I can remove the ring from the jar, and then I'm just going to label them and place them on the shelf, and they'll be ready to go. Then I'm going to put a date. And I did want to remark about the hot pepper. I did de-seed this hot pepper. I didn't want this brine to be really hot. But, you know, you can do what you want. I just wanted this to be a typical pickle. And so if you want it hotter, you can leave your seed. I did not. So, and you can see that placing the okra in here right side up and upside down, kind of going every other way, helps me pack a fair bit of okra in the jar. This was really curly okra. Usually it's longer and straighter, but for some reason this that I picked, a lot of it was crooked. So it's not as pretty in the jar as it could be. But this is ready to go. I'm going to let it set at least a week before I would open it, or a couple weeks, so that it has time for the pickling brine to get all through there and make everything taste really good.